Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of digital and creative media works. Where each week we take some pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
My name is Aron.
I didn't prep Aron for this at all, so
Going in blind.
and he doesn't listen to our show. He edits my book, so this is a real ton of events for us. Normally we're doing the written word. Today we're doing the spoken word. It's a new month, and it's a new me, and it's a new us. And this year we've been doing a new theme for each month, and this month's theme is immersion. And what better way to kick it off than with the immersion of Red Dead Redemption 2?
Yes.
So you lost your mind and played a lot of this game, didn't you?
I played so much of this game. Yep. As soon as it came out,
Yeah.
I was deep into this game.
You basically foregone sleep since it came out.
Yes, yeah, just to play it. And
how's that
I
going?
played a hell of a lot of it. Yeah, it's going well. I'm up to the epilogue. Some of you out there may also be up to the epilogue.
I imagine a few people, but probably not
A few
all.
people who have also foregone sleep to get to the epilogue.
I'm at like 30%. I've been faffing. I've been mostly clothes shopping in the video game. I've been doing a lot of riding around the countryside, appreciating the atmosphere. I've been doing a lot of side quests, a lot of just chatting to people in the street, saying hi.
Yeah.
Role-playing as Arthur, going to bars, getting too drunk and fighting people. So I've been having a real time of it. But before we get into the summary, just a quick cap off of what the game actually is. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a Western-themed first-person RPG it's a Western-themed first-person game, so as in developed in-party in-house, RPG developed and published by Rockstar Games as the prequel to the 2010 title of the same name, Red Dead Redemption, and it's the third game in the Red Dead series. Interesting that they went with prequel. No one really kind of, when they announced that, it was a really subtle, like, they were like, oh, it's a prequel. Like, it wasn't like a feature of the game that it was a prequel.
Yeah. I don't think many people were preoccupied with that. I don't think Rockstar was either.
Even the game isn't, which is nice.
Yeah, it is very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, we'll kind of get into that a bit with John's character and stuff, but before we do any of the analysis, we have to get through the recap, so bear with as we recap. Just a bit of a summary of what the game's all about, and then we can delve into some of our thoughts, feelings, and analysis. In 1899, after a botched robbery, Dutch Vanderlyn's gang, including Arthur Morgan and a young John Marston, flee their hideout in Blackwater. They become trapped in the mountains and almost freeze to death, but eventually find their feet by robbing a train owned by an oil magnate, Leviticus Cornwall. Cornwall then enlists the help of the Pinkerton Detective Agency to hunt down the Vanderlyn gang. You play as Arthur Morgan, Dutch's workhorse, and occupy a... makes it sound like you're actually a horse.
You're not a horse in
You're
the
a
game.
man.
You're more like an attack dog.
Yeah, exactly. You occupy a kind of supervisory role, like second in command within the gang, taking point on most jobs that you take part in. As the story progresses, Arthur and John grow to resent and respect each other as the gang is continually forced to relocate on the lam from the Pinkertons and the law alike. Ultimately, Arthur realizes he must soon make a choice between what is right and the only family he's ever known. And boy, I'm up to the point where I'm starting to see that something's about to happen, you know, and what we're going to try and do for this podcast is not spoil the story too much. We'll talk about maybe like the first 10 hours or so.
I'm going to try and skirt around this story as much as possible. But a lot of my opinions are going to be said knowing what I know about the main story.
Yeah, certainly.
Yep.
So where do you feel like starting? Because we have a few different areas that we can cover. I'm going to save my meta reading till the very end, as I always do.
What do you want to? Do you want to talk? Let's talk about the main character.
I think we should start with Arthur, right?
Start with Arthur.
He's like this kind of stoic cowboy. He's the very definition of like a stoic as far as like the classic philosophers would imagine, right? He's the cowboy archetype. He doesn't really feel much. Everyone assumes he has a heart of gold, but does he actually? He never seems to have any emotions, and when he does, it's about like, you know, this old flame that's left.
I think he gets a lot of rib in the game for being stupid. And
He's a bit dense.
I don't think he's as stupid as everyone makes him out to be. He's you know, an outlaw. And he's not in touch with mainstream society, nor does he really have the verbosity to express himself as Dutch or Trelawney does.
I would even argue that that's why he comes across as dull, because where he's surrounded, like it's in contrast with everyone else. Where in the same way that John feels like this kind of, like John feels like a closed mouth kind of sarcastic kid because of everyone else around him. Arthur feels dumb because everyone else is so like flamboyant, and Dutch is so like,
Yeah,
verbose
he's
and
so
articulate.
extra. He is
Dude is the most extra.
He's absolutely. But Arthur, yeah, there's a hidden backstory with Arthur,
Okay.
and like the woman in his life. I don't know how, because this has been my first playthrough of the game. I don't know how various the playthroughs can be, depending on your honor level.
Probably not terribly story to story, but I imagine moment to moment it could be quite different.
That old flame comes up repetitively throughout the
I've done
the
the first side quest with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it the case though with, because the first Red Dead had an honor system, didn't it?
It does. Yeah. It had an honor system, which was like a good and evil kind of system, but then it had something else as well. There was, whether you were a good guy and bad guy, and then there was your notoriety or your
like how famous you are.
Yeah, your famous,
profile,
your fame level. Yeah.
Which this game, and that's like when you get to Blackwater, by the time you get to Blackwater in Red Dead Redemption, people go, like, they greet you on the street by name.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And I haven't got to that point in this game where, like, Arthur's, like, a kind of famous outlaw or anything, but I've noticed that one of the things the game does really interestingly is, like, characters that you interact with in the real world kind of remember what you did. It's really, like, it's one of those subtle things that's eerie and weird, and that you go, oh, shit. Like, I had an instance where I was riding through someone's property, like, line to escape some, they weren't bounty hunters, they were just, like, regular raiders, like, regular thugs who tried to stop me. And I was trying to ride through, and they kind of came down from the hills and tried to beset me. And I was riding through someone else's property, and I stopped and whipped around on my horse and went bang, bang. It did red eye, and I was like, bang, 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 bang. And then I kind of stopped and looted all the bodies, and I could hear, like, someone screaming from the farmhouse or whatever. Thought nothing of it. Was coming back for a quest later on and had to stop there to ask someone for help. And she was like, I'm not helping you. You killed all those men on my property. And I was like, what? Oh, I did. Oh, yeah. And that was like a real moment where I was like, oh, Arthur's maybe not the best dude.
Yeah, no, he's geared toward evil.
For sure.
Which is very different to the original game.
Where John was really
he was geared toward good.
He was the
geared
redeemed.
toward redemption.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very difficult. Rockstar's made it very difficult to play him evil. I feel
Arthur, you mean, or
play him like, which is a good thing. It would change my play style completely.
Well, being evil is in real life hard work.
Yes,
that's being cruel is easy, but being actually evil takes a lot. Like, even to the extent where, like, the game, and this might be a good pivot to talk about, like, the way that the game kind of bucks a lot of the open world trends, or, like, even some of the more basic stuff, where in any other game, do you ever play the Prototype video game where you were Alex someone?
I've seen footage of the
thing.
Yep.
Alex Mercer, and you would kind of bounce around, and you being evil was easy. You just started murdering people because you were this kind of godlike, person. Whereas definitely Arthur Morgan is not. He's on the same level as everyone else. He's not this empowered godlike character. He's just a dude on a horse trying to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. This becomes apparent when you start running into bounty hunter groups,
and they immediately kill you.
They are so ruthless. They really are. And a lot of the time when I was frustrated playing the game was immediately in those situations where you're starting out in the game, just going down the road on your horse,
and you get murdered,
and like eight vagabonds ambush you and end up killing your horse or pushing you to some god knows where region of the map, and then you have to make your way back.
I did the thing where I assumed when that was happening the first time that it was a video game and I'd be able to kill them instead of fleeing.
Yeah, exactly.
But then after that, I think that's why so many people bounced off this game so quickly and didn't like it. It's because it just isn't it's not a very gamey video game. I have a laundry list of stuff I can run through quickly of just examples of ways that it isn't, and then this might tie nicely into what you were trying to say. It doesn't really have a quest list. It has a journal where Arthur keeps notes, but
it has a very basic quest list.
It's not like in Skyrim where you open it up and you can tab through and see which faction gave you what, and where you go into your map and you can check what active markers you have, but you can't look at a quest.
It's mainly it's the like the little requests people give you within the gang.
Yes.
They're checked off there. They're like marked for later, just so you don't forget. You know,
where do you look for
what.
those? If one was,
you hit right in the D-pad. Oh no, you hit left on the D-pad. Sorry, right is opening your satchel.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, it's just there because Jack Marston wants a book. Uncle wants hair pomade pomade rather. And yeah. Nothing like, a regular open world.
It's not like everything
The Witcher,
else.
for instance, where you have massive quest trackers.
And like, I think the other thing too is with those games, when you do have quests, I was saying to someone today at work that in other games, when you complete a portion of a quest, right, the game then updates your journal and gives you a summary of what you talked about. So you can be like, oh yeah, I remember what they were asking me about. But this game, you don't get that. You get the most, like, it's most of the quest when you look in your map is like a sentence and it's vague. So unless you're paying attention in cutscenes and paying attention to dialogue and world events, you're probably not going to know what's happening. And I think that's why a lot of people don't like the way this game handles that stuff, because in every other game that's out, like big open world games, they kind of, it's like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for instance, which is very much like The Witcher 3. They kind of modeled it off The Witcher 3. The whole game is like, the analogy that I've written down, it's like a comfortable sofa where like everything is there for you. There's like a drink holster, you got like your beer, and like you kind of lean back and you're reclined. But Red Dead 2 is like the opposite. No one tells you that you have a lantern that you can just bring out when it's dark. No one tells you to use a lasso to hogtie people. No one explains like the best ways to clean yourself and your clothes. The game doesn't even have fucking loading screen tips, which every single video game has now. Like, it is so the antithesis of current game trends, to the point where, like, instead of what other games do, which is make you feel empowered to have access to this world, you have to, you have to take Arthur and you have to be Arthur and you have to kind of probe the world and find out.
Yeah.
And you don't find out bounty hunters are fucking lethal until they murder you. And you don't find out that...
the game doesn't explain to you that there are people currently hunting you. And there are a lot of really nice details for a person who doesn't want their handheld in a game.
Yeah.
Some of my favorites, two of my favorites. One, if you're riding... and this is kind of a two-bitter. If you're riding next to a carriage, for instance, you can jump onto it, and that probably means that you just throw the person off. Like, it's an upgraded hijacking of a vehicle, which is really circumstantial. I mean, most of the time you're going to prefer riding your own horse, but it's a nice detail that they've added.
Or if you wanted to, when you find out that there's a fence that you can sell carriages to, I've utilized that a variety of times.
Yeah.
I did a solid night of just stealing carriages because I was like, I wonder how many I can sell.
How many can I sell this dude?
And he got really pissed off. He's like, "Why are you back here? What are you doing? There's just so many carriages." I'm like, "Dog, I'm trying to make a bank." You know what I mean? I was trying to buy a nice coat, Aron. Okay.
The other thing that I really like comes from fishing. When you go fishing, and there's a fantastic quest where you, Hosea, and Dutch go fishing
on the water. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and then they just reminiscing about the good old times.
It's like a solid half hour of just fishing.
It is,
and they just talk to you. It's delightful.
Everyone speaks, and then it's up to you to finally end that mission.
I didn't for ages.
I didn't for ages either. I pretty much caught absolutely everything there was.
It helps that the game is so good looking that on that water, even on because we're both playing on the original PlayStation 4s that we have. My goodness, the game is like that moment where you're on the lake, and I did it. Mine happened to be at sunset, just circumstantially.
Yeah, it was same as me.
And I went, wow, video games are pretty good. You know what I mean? I had that moment where I was like,
this water is amazing.
I was like, fuck, is that prettier than real life? It might be. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But on that note, when you go fishing afterward, and when you go to jetties and you go to docks where you're close to the shoreline, generally speaking, there are little fish by the shoreline that are all programmed to have a knee-jerk reaction when there's a disturbance in the water, and they'll duck to one side. So if you as Arthur jump into the water next to those fish, they'll swim up onto shore and beach themselves.
That's amazing.
And you can actually make a lot of moolah doing that, because a lot of really expensive fish.
That brings up an interesting point.
Close to shoreline.
Because that's a mechanic in Zelda, Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
And this game is mostly Breath of the Wild, but what if it was Red Dead 2?
It does feel a little Breath of the Wild inspired.
My argument, though, and this is not my analogy, I think it was Kotaku in their article about Red Dead 2, they described, like, they were talking about, like, the comparison between RDR2, GTA 5, The Witcher 3, and AC Odyssey, and these kind of games that kind of all are, like, open world-y stuff or whatever. The difference is, like, this game is very custom. To the point where, like, its voice is so on point and on style that, like, and this was my thought here, was that when I went from the sludgy, gross streets of Valentine to, like, the windswept kind of red sanded or, like, red soiled roads, they felt like different places.
Yep.
Because the voice was so strong, and they felt like real, like, not just different places, but real places that in other games I'd be like, it's like I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I could not tell you the visual difference between most of the cities in that game, because they're all Grecian and they're kind of the same. Whereas this game, like, I know those two places are very different, and even the other location that you visit early in the game that isn't Valentine, that's name I can't recall.
Strawberry.
Strawberry is even really
Emerald.
different from that, because it's kind of on the side of a mountain range and there's a river running through it.
It's probably my favorite town in the game.
It's gorgeous.
I really love that.
Yeah.
I really love it. Yes. And another character in the game really likes that town too, but I will say no more about that.
But I think the flip side, though, is that the immersion requires you to be bought in from moment one. That's why I think so many people, like, so many of my friends disliked this game, which we'll get to in a minute, but the analogy that Kotaku used was this game is like custom furniture, where it's the opposite of like a flat pack IKEA unit. If Assassin's Creed Odyssey is flat pack IKEA, you order it online, it turns up to your door, it's got an Allen key in it, it's got the instructions, everything is like cling film wrapped. You can put it together in like 10 minutes. And it works every time, right? It's frustrating because it's like gives you too much information sometimes. Like, what do I fucking do here? Yeah, it takes sometimes the bits aren't labeled correctly, so it takes you a while. But eventually you get there and it's pretty straightforward and it's pretty low maintenance, right? Red Dead Redemption 2 is like ordering a piece of bespoke furniture from someone you've never met before and trying to describe to them over the phone what you want from your furniture, and then when it turns up, trying to work out how they built it. That's what this game is, I think. It's you picking through all of that information, trying to understand, like, how did they build this? What wood did they use? All that stuff without talking to them. It's that kind of separation where the game forces you to engage with it by way of obfuscation. And I think that's why so many people I know went, I was so excited for this game and I picked it up and I fucking hated it because it's not a game.
So they didn't hate they hated it because it was handhold? It wasn't handholdy?
A lot of the complaints they had were like, the frustration you described with the bounty hunters. The first thing I did is I learned, right?
Yeah.
The only time I asked for help in this game was when I messaged you and I said, how do I get into this?
Do I get to Blackwater?
Yeah, and you went fucking sneak in
you
with
have
the
to
water.
Sneak in. Yeah,
and I thought of that, but I was like, it's a game. They're not going to let me do that. But Red Dead, of course, does.
Yeah.
Right? So the minute that I realized that, I never had to ask another question because I went, well, what would you do in real life? You'd sneak in via water or you'd find a different route.
Yeah.
Right? So that was then how I approached the rest of the game. But it wasn't until you have that transition in your head. And I just wonder if, like, people there's just too much of a barrier to entry for that.
Bounty hunters are like to dislike the game because of the bounty hunters. If there's anybody listening out there who dropped the game immediately, they are few and far between. When they do ambush you, it's horrendous. Especially if you're in a really great place for an ambush. One of the things I just stopped playing for half an hour because I had there's a beautiful black horse that you're given in the beginning of the game. It's optional. You can sell it or you can keep it. I kept mine, and that's the horse that I used the whole game up until in Lemoyne County when I was ambushed by 9 bounty hunters. One was on a fixed Maxim gun. What? Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I didn't know that could be a thing.
Yeah,
dude.
they move these little ambush sites everywhere. Like
like it was like a physical ambush.
Yeah, and there was a carriage there, which is the dead giveaway. And same as what you were saying. After the first time you ambush, you're like, well, I'm not going to stick around to fight these guys. I'm just going to run away. And when they do follow me, I'll pick them off one by one. Gun is right?
Bad news.
But a fixed machine gun at the end of a bridge coming out of Saint Denis, you're dead. Like and the thing that kind of turned me off a little bit from the game is the death system itself, because
explain how that works for people that.
Oh yes, if you've never died in this game yet.
Wait, hang on. When the first time you died? Because the first time I died, I visibly I gasped because I when it opens up and he's doing something that I like. But explain the issue with the geography, because
so it spawns you in a random kind of location, doing something cowboy-like, like you'll be leaning up against a tree, smoking a cigarette, or, you'll be crouched by a campfire.
Leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette.
Against the wall, smoking a cigarette.
Sitting by a campfire, smoking a cigarette.
Sitting on your horse, smoking a cigarette.
It's a lot of cigarettes, gang.
Yeah, smoking a cigarette and smoking another cigarette. That's fine. Being spawned in a random location is completely doable. Mm-hmm. When you have your horse, but some joker figured that
horses have physical geography now.
Well, not just that, because that happened to me too. But if you die and your horse is on the verge of death, then your horse dies as well, and so you're stuck in the middle of nowhere without a damn.
You
horse.
Don't have a horse.
And then obviously, the counter argument would be just get a new horse. Well, I don't want to get a fucking new horse.
Steal one.
I don't want to steal a new one. I was given this beautiful black horse, and now it's dead. It's something you gotta get over pretty quickly. But it is a bit frustrating when you have a kind of plan to go back to a particular city and just start getting down into it, and you get spawned to a river out in the middle of nowhere.
I think that's because it disrupts the rhythm and the flow of the game.
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't feel fun. How whenever that happens regularly, so as we were talking about with the bounty hunters, right? The lesson you learn from that ambush is when you're really wanted, don't ride into bottlenecks. That's what you learn from that.
Yeah.
Don't ride across bridges into bottlenecks because you might be ambushed. But with the horse thing, if you've died, you've already been punished, right? Because you lose money and you're somewhere else. Give me my horse, though. And and you can get temporary horses if your horse is so far away. If you whistle enough, the game is fine, just fucking have one. But it's never next to you.
No. I
just find that annoying.
Far away. Yeah,
but even if you do die and your horse is alive, it doesn't always spawn with you.
No, it could be elsewhere.
Which I get that they're trying to be don't die next time, dickhead. But at the same time, sometimes when you're really into a moment, this game gets you and I'll touch on this in my meta reading, but you get into this flow state where you're I am Arthur Morgan, and I am a Red Dead Redemption man. I'm a cowboy man. That's who I am now. My real life is no longer meaningful. I am nothing but a cattle rancher with a gun. That's who I am. I'm gonna bounty hunt. That's what I'm doing. And the game's nah, you're dead. Walk for 5 minutes. You're God, I'm so in the moment. It pulls you out of the flow.
There weren't too many ungodly moments where that happened, because they do make it very nice for you to get to particular cities where there are stables, because there's a working train line, and there's the stagecoaches are back. The only times where I was really affected by that were when missions separated you from your horse entirely.
They get pretty good at that. Later on when you're riding,
there are still some.
But there's some where they just go, you're in the middle of nowhere without your horse, and you're it's because the game made me do something else.
Yeah.
Which instead of being able during the mission, if there was an option to then say, oh well, as we're going, just tie my horse to the back of this thing.
Yeah.
That because I don't know why that's not a thing.
In missions where there are wagons, they
follow
do
you
that.
Naturally.
But if you have to mount a different horse.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, then
and you can't hold the lasso the whole time because you're doing a quest. Or
exactly. Yeah.
The other thing that you written down that I thought was interesting was that horses are the most expensive and frustrating element of the game. Which is what you're talking about.
Yep.
And because you spend 99% of your money paying off bounties from in-game quests.
Yeah. The only way you can do business in a city is if you have no bounties.
It's frustrating because. It depends.
A stagecoach driver won't take you if you have a bounty.
I've never had a problem with it. I've never used a stagecoach.
Well, the stagecoach is the only thing in this game equivalent to fast travel. There is a fast travel system, but
it's
the dumbest fast travel system I've ever seen.
I haven't unlocked it yet, but that's the next thing on my to-do list.
In order
because
to properly,
I want to see how it works.
Yeah, in order to properly fast travel anywhere, I don't think it's a major spoiler. You need to be at camp.
Yes.
if you're not at camp, you can't fast travel. You just use the stagecoach, like everyone else.
Yep. Which makes sense because in real life you can't. Oh, what's up? Ben's in the chat. Hey, man. Our boy Ben's here.
Hi, Ben.
Ben's got a bit of a flu this week and he hasn't played Red Dead 2, so Aron's subbing in.
Ben hasn't played Red Dead 2?
No, well, he played the first 3 hours with me. But, yeah, well, he's sick. I don't think they're related. No, but I think even, one of my biggest problems with the game, and you touched on it too, is the customization of certain things. Especially things like clothing, and I know that Rockstar, like, especially GTA 5, they prove that what they do is they release the game, then they add clothing options.
Yeah.
But even compared to the first game, the clothing options, even though they're modular, they're nowhere near enough. Like, what I kept expecting was each town I got to would have a new set of clothing that I could buy, because that's what GTA always does. You go to a different shop. Didn't happen. It's all the same clothes.
It does kind of develop.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Like the more cities you visit, especially when you get to Saint Denis, which is the Blackwater of Red Dead Redemption 2, because Blackwater is otherwise inaccessible. My kind of issue with it was that it had a very same feeling. In the original Red Dead Redemption, I mean, not Red Dead Revolver, the first game of this series. In Red Dead Redemption, there were, I think, like eight outfits.
13.
13?
Why do I know that off the top of my head?
That's incredible. But there were a few. There were a few outfits.
Well, they were all very different.
They were all very different. Yes.
With the exception of something they did really nicely was about 4 of them were variations on John's regular outfit, which is like his kind of cattle rancher jeans and his vest thing.
Yeah.
About 4 of them were variations, but one of them was like a poncho, one of them was a duster coat, one of them was a without the vest, and it was a different kind of jacket. Like, it was kind of like 4 of them were like variations, and the rest of them were totally different.
There were different gangster outfits.
Different
gangster
outfit
of that.
You had a hunting outfit. You had gambling outfits.
Gamblers' clothes. Yeah. If
you had the ultimate master outfit, which was the best, which was just black, like outlaw clothing. Yeah,
you look like Lee Van Cleef.
I was so fucking horny for that.
Yeah,
God, that's a cool outfit.
It is. And there are similar outfits.
You can do it in this game. But
in this game.
But what I was looking for was, when you play GTA 5, there's a moment where you go, "Oh, I can dress like anything." Like, you have a moment where you're like, "Oh," and this I was expecting to be like, I could dress like any cowboy I want to be, but it's really, at the moment, it felt quite limiting, and I haven't got to the rest of the different clothing. I've still got the default like options that you start the game with, but even like the gun stuff, like you can customize the metal and the engravings and the rifling and stuff, but it doesn't change the way that anything works significantly enough that I felt like I should customize new guns.
Yeah.
Because I the minute that they were like, you can dual wield, I was like, 2 pistols, baby. And that's mostly what I use.
Exactly.
So I have a Schofield and a double action that I pimped out. But at no point did I add the barreling and go, or the rifling, and be like, that changed
There's a
the
noticeable difference with the way I aim in this game.
It does the same. I don't know. It doesn't.
It is very samey in that respect. I like the gun customization a lot better.
Did you find the guns themselves feel adequately different, like the different categories and stuff? Like the rifles and the pistols and the...
So one thing, and I don't know, it's been a while since my last playthrough of the original Red Dead Redemption. One thing I noticed in terms of gameplay with pistols and guns, more rifles and repeaters than anything. When you fire a shot first, and then you have to double tap to reload the gun.
Do you mean in the original game?
In the original game, you're not doing that. Like you as like when you fire, there's a delay as you reload, and then you fire again. Yep. In this game, every time you scope in to aim at someone, R2 in our case with PS4s fires, and then R2 then is used to reload the gun.
That wasn't the case in the original. It would automatically do it.
So the frustrating thing is when you have an escort, or you have like a guardian angel kind of in a watchtower kind of situation where you have a scoped rifle and you've lined up a shot, and suddenly you realize you've forgotten to reload your gun, and then the AI in this game I think is stellar in comparison to the last game.
99% of the point. Like the 1% when it goes wrong, you go, it's a video game. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Then in this case, because the AI is constantly moving, and they're very reactive to the situation that's going on.
When you shoot a guy in the chest, you can see it happening.
Yeah, but also the other enemies see that happening as well. And they react to it.
That to me is what sets this apart from the other games that I played recently. It's like The Witcher 3 is the only other game I played where it felt really realistic in that way, where unless there is someone controlling, and I've talked about this in the previous post show before, but there's a moment in The Witcher 3 that I have which will stay with me forever in my until I die probably, which was I came upon this like giant gnarled tree. It was like a huge tree that had been like, shaved down to like just its trunk. There was no branches or anything. And it had been turned into like this kind of makeshift living space. And it was kind of people were living in the tree and stuff. But all around the tree for like a good kilometer was just like this ankle deep water, right? And I'm riding my horse up, and it's just like, I just saw it in the distance, and I was like, what a weird place. So I ride my horse up, and I kind of approach it, and this guy from the top yells down at me, and he hollers down, and he's like, yeah, you can't be here, this is our fucking land, get off our fucking property, or whatever he says. And I'm like, no, fuck off, I'm Geralt, fucking Rivia. And what happens is people start pouring out of this tree. Like, it's a tree full of raiders, right? Yeah. And they pour out, and they surround me, and it's like 100 dudes. Like, it's an area that the game, like, I was looking on the wiki, and they're like, yeah, 90 plus, right? And I'm playing on New Game Nightmare March, New Game Plus, or whatever. And it's midnight, and the moon is up, and the moon is this, it makes the kind of water into this silver platter, the silver cloth, and I'm butchering dudes, and the water is slowly turning red as I kill these dudes, and by the time I finish, and I'm like mentally drained because I've been concentrating for like a good 30 minutes trying to kill these dudes, and they're all dead, and it's just this ocean of bodies, and the water has gone from silver to red. And I was like, that is a moment in a game. Whatever that is, that was something that I felt that I truly experienced. In this game, Red Dead Redemption 2 has a bunch of those.
It is chock full of that kind of shit. Absolutely.
That is so hard to do.
Yeah.
Before we get into my meta reading, because it is directly related to that, was there anything else you wanted to cover before we kind of move into why I think that feeling occurs?
Very, very sparingly talk about Dutch.
Yes, well, here's the kind of stories
very important. Yeah, well, yeah. It's a story about Dutch's gang.
Yeah. We should talk about John as well before we move on.
Yeah. Well, both those characters.
Let's touch on Dutch quickly, and then John potentially more later.
And just like very generally on the gang as well. So Dutch is like kind of an idealist of the group.
Yeah.
He's the man with the plan. And he's also the man that kind of believes in this mythical land called the West.
He doesn't believe in America. He
believes in like a heap of independent states. He's
really
very, very anarchic in his worldview. But kind of not so much that, more utopian. I felt
he feels to modulate between. I think my issue with Dutch's ideology, like as I'm judging him when you play it through, is like, he is this idealist, right? However, at the same time, he often forsakes his ideals for his family, which is like what the state does as well. So he kind of contradicts himself a little bit with that stuff.
It's like his gang means a lot to him, and I think it means more to him than the idea of ever settling down. Like as you go through the game, he will demonstrate that he doesn't really have a plan for what happens after they stop robbing banks,
or like even like has a plan for like where they'll go next.
Yeah,
like you see when you first move camp in that game, you go from where you are on like the horse. What's the first camp called? Horseshoe Point. Or
Horseshoe,
like that?
Yeah.
You go
Horseshoe
from there,
Overlook.
Yeah, and you go from there to like this empty riverbed, and the first thing Charles, the guy that you go with, says is he's like, "Oh, this will be bad in rain, and also people are already here." And you find a better spot, but Dutch didn't really have a plan. He was like, "You guys, go work it out."
Yeah. Well, they had to move. What I'm talking about is he doesn't really have a major plan after this.
Oh, for the
like
endpoint.
Most of the people are following Dutch because they are in a dire situation where they have no land of their own. They've been displaced. In some cases, their families have been murdered.
Yeah.
And that means that they're effectively. They're effectively vagrants. They again no property, no wealth to their names, so they're forced into this outlaw life, and none of them really want to be in it.
Seemingly except Dutch,
probably except for Dutch, and I would say Micah, who's.
I mean, even Sean to an extent. Sean is one of my favorite characters because he is so complex. I really love Sean's character.
Get close to Sean.
Yeah, I really like him because he's like the Irish kind of plucky youngster who, him and Morgan have this kind of back and forth that I really enjoy, but I can see there's like something there, and every time I talk to him, I'm like, I want to get to fucking know you. Let's talk about John before we get into my meta reading, because we do need to wrap the show up.
Yeah.
So John Marston is the protagonist of Red Dead Redemption, the original.
Yes.
And in this game, what's interesting to me, and I made a note of this in our notes, is that really it's the story of John Marston and the epilogue of Arthur Morgan. In some ways, this narrative. Where it's like Arthur Morgan was the golden goose. He was like the guy who was the one with all the answers, and now he's like the work kind of horse. He's the guy he's the attack dog. But John Marston is like the guy that gets forgiven for everything. He goes away for a year. Everyone else has to pick up after him. He comes back, all that stuff. Like, it really feels like the story is about John coming back. It's in a lot of ways.
This Arthur is demonstrably affected by John's disappearance. And
he pretends that it's about if anyone else did it, they wouldn't be forgiven. But I think he was like personally hurt by that.
Yeah, I think so. But Arthur is like loyal. That's why I compare him to a dog. There are some questionable things that occur toward the end of the game, and one thing that I never really understood about the end of the game is why Arthur didn't leave the gang. And it's because he's cursed. He's cursed to be loyal to Dutch.
Right.
And yeah, it's a shame. John isn't though, and I think Arthur likes that John isn't bound by that. It's not so much that he's angry or upset, it's that he resents maybe that John was able to leave for a year. Yes.
Whereas Arthur is not capable of that. For whatever reason, I don't want to spoil it because I haven't got to that point yet.
It's a kind of a mystical reason, because a lot of people in Arthur's life kind of question the fact why he's still there.
Right, doesn't make a lot of sense.
Like the young woman that he was seeing desperately wanted him to get out of the outlaw life, but he wouldn't. And as to whether that's because he's loyal to Dutch, loyal to the gang, or for other reasons, maybe because he can't do anything else.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you even see that with there's that great quest toward the start of the game where it's just before you leave Valentine, where John and Arthur they steal some sheep from some farmers, and Arthur teaches John how to be a ranch hand.
Specifically, he says, "Now's not the time for you to learn how to ranch."
And the irony of that is later on, that's what John's going to do with his life. But
yeah,
I
there are a lot of little funny
nods.
digs.
Yeah,
Arthur kind of jokes about him standing a bit too close to water at the second camp.
Yep.
And John says, "Shut the hell up." And
great.
I love that because
it's
obviously
little
in the first
game
you couldn't swim.
Yeah. And then, Arthur, who makes fun of John repeatedly for that in the story. It's great. So let's get through my meta reading because we are running quickly out of time. So I want to talk about Zizek and immersion, and I'll do a kind of quick overview and then explain why this game, I think, on a meta level works really well. So Zizek he was a philosopher that expanded on Lacan's idea of the real. Lacan's idea of the real was the real is an absolute thing that is exclusive of symbolism and meaning and language. The real is something that exists outside of any influence you have on it. It is absolute. And Zizek kind of expanded on this in a lot of ways, where he talked about imaginary. He talked about the imaginary real, and the game utilizes the imaginary real with because there's so many systems that you can't see. What ends up happening is, and to give you a quick definition of the imaginary real before we then get into how this game does it well. Quick definition: the imaginary real is an unfathomable something that permeates things as a trace of the sublime. This form of the real becomes perceptible in things like the full Monty. In the act of disrobing, the unemployed protagonist completely is present and real in that moment. So the way that I understand the real and the imaginary real is the absolute truth of a thing, of an experience, or of a person, or of a moment, right? And in the Full Monty, for instance, when he has that moment of voluntary degradation where he's naked, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have anything, there is something else that isn't controlled by language or meaning or anything, that is visible to the viewer, where they like when you watch that film, and if you haven't like experienced the full Monty, you should watch it. Like like something happens in your brain where you touch the sublime for a brief moment, because there is nothing else but that vulnerability. It's the absolute truth of a thing, right? And Zizek proposed that, he talked about The Sound of Music as an example, where the invaded Austrians are depicted more like provincial fascists, while the Nazis are like Jewish bureaucrat style people. And he talked about like, he posits that the movie has a hidden pro-fascist message that is the real of that film. Or if you really unpack those ideas and you take away the vocabulary and you get to the essence of what it is, the real is that it is pro-fascist. And so in the context of Red Dead 2, Zizek's imaginary real is made itself felt during the moments when you stop making gameplay decisions and you start acting as Arthur and experiencing as Arthur, right? And there are a handful of sections where the seamless cut, it helps, like the God of War style cut thing that they have where it like seamlessly translates. Oh, it's beautiful.
It is very nice.
But there's a few moments where, like, as we were talking about before, where you stop perceiving the systems and you start experiencing something that is sublime. Like, and it's not that, the kind of the imagined real isn't like the Matrix where you come out at like, the imagined real in the Matrix is when you're in the Matrix, there are elements of that real, that like you can kind of deal with and you can understand. But in truth, like in the film The Matrix, what ends up happening is when Neo comes out of the Matrix, right? He's leaving the imagined real and he's accessing the real, which is like this, the shitty reality that he lives in. This game does the opposite, where it proposes like you're playing a video game. Chill out, dog. Don't worry about it, right? But really, the real that happens is like the real of the game is not the imagined real, which is like, oh, you're in the simulation. This feels like real. Like it feels like real life. You feel like you are Arthur Morgan.
Yeah.
For brief moments and seconds and stuff like that. We talked about the bounties where like you learn something and you go through. But it's the other moments. Like when it's little shit where I was walking into roads for the second time and like the wind was blowing and the red dust was coming up. And I don't run in this game if I can't help it. I tend to walk everywhere. Just because it makes it feel more realistic. And I was walking and someone was like, they said something to me and I responded to them. And then like someone got like thrown out a bar like a bar door or whatever. Yeah. And then like someone else was arguing and I walked up and I helped resolve it. But it wasn't like a gameplay decision. It just was like instinct.
Yeah.
And that instinct is what Zizek would propose as like the imagined real. It's like gameplay, and video games can simulate that kind of it's not even a pretend version of reality, but like when you're playing it, the experience is real to you, right?
Yeah.
When you're playing Red Dead 2 and you're like, I'm staying up till 3 a.m. or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah.
It feels real when you're in it.
The stories that come out of it, yeah. It's nice to be able to fulfill that cowboy fantasy, I think.
Yeah. But it's not
roam around.
It's not an empowerment fantasy. It's
you're doing everything that you would do as a cowboy.
Right.
If you want to go rustle cattle, you can
go do that.
You can absolutely do that. And you want to go chase sheep, want to go break horses,
want to steal carriages, stick up stores,
go fish, go hunt a bear.
Hunting, dude. I haven't even brought myself to kill that first bear because it was terrifying.
Oh man, it's some of the fights I've seen are amazing, and then if you play it like a methodical bastard, and you get up on the rocks around there and you snipe the bear, you actually put the fear of God into it and it runs away. That was a power fantasy. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And then other hunts are just as fraught with danger. I recently finished hunting a wolf, and I was stalking it for miles. Like, the original clue is like, you've managed to find the area, find the clue, and then you end up walking in some god-awful direction for miles. And I got to a place kind of like Yosemite Park, Yellowstone, not Yosemite, Yellowstone Park, with all the huge kind of flumes of water, and the wolf was circling one of these as it like shot into the air. And I remember I shot it with one arrow and embedded it, into the side of its shoulder, and it kept fucking running at me. And I had to finish it off with my knife. It's those those epic split-second decisions where you have to put your bow down and then get this knife out as it jumps at you and it starts ripping your clothes apart.
I think that perfectly summarizes why it's but you don't go, I need to make a gameplay decision. You're like, I have to decide something.
It's and there are a lot of things in there that keep that in check, that provide that realism.
It's honestly one of my
which is it is a very good game. Later on, it's interesting. If we can do a retrospective of this,
I would love to do a part 2 when I finish it.
And after most people have done with the game,
revisit,
I have a lot of opinions that are hiding under the surface here that I can't really share because it would destroy.
Yeah, we'll do a
lot of the experience.
Spoiler cast at some point. That might be a good place to wrap up.
Yes,
we do a segment each week where we talk about stuff that we've been watching or listening to or whatever. But you've just been playing this game, so we probably can skip it.
I've been doing other things.
Well, what can you recommend to people to check out, if anything?
I think on the topic of cowboys, if we want to do cowboys, go check out Blood Meridian. If viewers of this podcast haven't already, by Cormac McCarthy. A lot of Cormac McCarthy's work is a lot like Red Dead Redemption. I think there was a lot of influence. A lot of influence drawn from his works.
Tonally.
Put into these games. And I watched a film, Bad Times at the El Royale. Go see that.
We talked about that last time we hung out. It's an interesting one.
It's an interesting film. Very nice aesthetic, but a kind of cautionary tale in hiring Chris Hemsworth to do anything other than play Thor. And also trying to write like Tarantino when you aren't like Tarantino.
I mean, everyone's trying to do that these days, if we're being honest. I'm trying to think of what I've even been checking out. I mean, I've been playing Red Dead 2. I've nearly finished Daredevil Season 3. It's a bit plotting, but I'm getting there. Patrick wonders what you thought of the soundtrack for the El Royale.
What did I think of the soundtrack? I didn't mind the soundtrack. One of the characters in the film is a singer. There's a lot of Isley Brothers.
Oh, okay.
No, it's and
I can get behind that.
There's a fantastic scene actually in the film where the singer is doing like an a cappella performance, and every so often she claps her hands. But in the meantime, one of the main characters is under a bed chiseling to the sound of her claps, so that the people on the other side of the window can't hear.
That's some Edgar Wright shit.
It was a really tense moment in a film that desperately needed more tense moments in it.
Love it. Love it. This is normally the part of the show where Ben plugs all of our stuff for us. You can just find us everywhere at DCMworks, or if you just want to go centrally, DCM.works is the place to go. Otherwise, if you were looking to get behind the scenes content, if you didn't catch this live and you want to see the post show, you can go to patreon.com/DCMworks and support us there. Alternatively, you can buy my book, Maynard Trigg, at maynardtrigg.com, that Aron edited and is suffering currently with me. About to suffer through the second book for that one as well. maynardtrigg.com. And if you want to buy the ebook, you can get 15% off using coupon code AFAPOD at checkout, which is nice. Yes, you can check that out. I'm really proud of the book, and I'm really excited for more people to read it. So if you do want to check that out, you can do that. It's going to be an audiobook sooner rather than later. Just waiting to hear back from some other things for that one. Feel like that's it. It's on Amazon, but if you just want to buy it directly, maynardtrigg.com. Otherwise, if you wanted to follow us individually, I'm at DCM I Hate Pie.
I'm at Aron_Arisvari. Good luck.
Good luck. It's in the show notes anyway. And we will see you guys